Today we're gonna do this thing we call transformation. We're gonna transform numbers. We're gonna be given a fraction, but we have to write this as a decimal. So we're gonna change it. Right? It's given to us in one way, in this case fraction, but we're gonna end up writing it as a decimal. Use repeating decimals when necessary. For fractions to decimals, what we're really gonna use is we're gonna use division. We're going to divide. We're going to divide the top number divided by the bottom number. Okay. So the way I'm going to write this to begin with, let me write a 1. Let me draw a little box right like this, and then my 8 outside. Right. My number on the outside should have no decimals, which I'm okay. My 8 has no decimals. The number on the inside, I should have a decimal. Since I'm expecting the answers to be written as a decimal, let me have a decimal on the inside. If I don't see it, let me write it at the end, and then let me bring it straight up. After my decimal point, I have as many zeros as I need. But I added 2 zeros now. I might need 3 zeros, 4 zeros, 5 zeros, depends. So I have as many zeros as I need. All right, so what I'm going to be doing first, kind of like in division, we talked about this before. I'm gonna go into, so 8 is gonna go into some numbers, and I'm gonna try to get as close as possible without going over. So first I start looking, 8 into 1. 8 cannot go into 1 because 8 is bigger than 1. So let me write 0 times. It goes in 0 times. So then I'm gonna include the next number. How many times does 8 go into 10? So in this case, I'm gonna say, well, it goes in 1 time. Let me multiply 1 times 8. Let me subtract this. 10 minus 8 gives me 2. My remainder is less than 8, so that is good. I need that. Let me bring down an extra 0, and then I ask myself, how many times does 8 go into 20? Once again, I'm trying to get as close as possible without going over. I'm gonna say, well, 3 times, that's too much, right? Because 8 times 3 is more than 20. So how about 2 times? Because I know 8 times 2 is 16. Let me subtract this. 20 minus 6 is 4. Again, let me bring an extra 0. I am going to stop once my remainder is 0. My remainder is basically when I subtract my values. Once my remainder is 0, or I start repeating my values. So here, how many times does 8 go into 40? I know 8 times 5 is 40. Oh, so that's exactly. It goes in 5 times because 8 times 5, it's 40. When I subtract this is 0. So my answer in this case is 0.125. You guys see it here on the top. 0.125. Interesting. Now, for question number 2, I have 6.5. One thing, going back on to question number 1, we didn't see a number before the fraction, right? I didn't have a mixed number. So I didn't have a whole number in front of the fraction. That's why in front of my decimal, I have 0. Notice how number 1, it was 0.125. For question number 2, let me just worry about my fraction. Okay, let me just worry about the fraction. Let me ignore the 6 for a moment. Let me just worry about the fraction. So I'm gonna go 1 divided by 2. Let me bring this up. 2 cannot go into 1, so it's 0. So let me bring an extra 0 here. 2 goes into 10 5 times, because 5 times 2 is 10. When I subtract this, I get 0 for remainder. So just my fraction, 1/2, just the fraction, simplifies to 0.5. However, now I'm going to pay attention to the 6, the whole number. Let me replace the 0 before the decimal point with the number in front of the fraction. So let me say that again. Let me replace the 0 in front of my decimal point with the number in front of the fraction. In this case, a 6. My answer in this case is going to be 6.5. The number before the decimal, so in this case a 6, is the number in front of the fraction. Cool. Let's take a look at question number 3. I'm going to go 1 divided by 3. Let me bring a decimal point. 3 cannot go into 1, so 0. Let me bring an extra 0. Remember, after the decimal point, I have as many zeros as I need. So then I ask, how many times is 3 going to 10? Once again, I'm trying to get as close as possible without going over. 3 times 4 is too much because it's more than 10. But 3 times 3 is 9. So I'm going to say 3 goes into 10 3 times because 3 times 3 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. So let me bring down an extra 0. And then goes, how many times is 3 going to 10? Wait a minute, that's something that I just solved. 3 into 10 is at 3 times. So in this case, it seems like I'm going to get a 3 again, and then a 3 again, and a 3 again, a 3 again, a 3 again. So let me just put a line over my 3 to emphasize I'm going to get 0.333333333 till it forever. So I'm going to get a bunch of 3s, right? We could have done it. 3 goes into 10 3 times. But then my remainder is 1. I bring the next 0, and then 3 goes into 10 over and over and over. So again, I'm going to stop once my remainder is 0, or I start repeating the question. Okay, let's take a look at question number 4. 1/4. So I'm just going to go 1 divided by 4. Let me bring my decimal point. 4 cannot go into 1, so that's good. Let me put a 0. Now 4 goes into 10 2 times. Once again, I'm trying to get as close as possible without going over. I know 4 times 2 is 8. Let me subtract this. 10 minus 8 is 2. My remainder is not 0, so I continue. My question's not repeating. I have as many zeros as I need. And after my decimal point, I have as many zeros as I need. So then I ask myself here, how many times does 4 go into 20? In this case, I'm going to say 5. Because 4 times 5 is 20. When I subtract this, I get my remainder 0. So I stop. My answer is 0.25. Question number 3, I didn't circle my answer, but there you go. Just one thing. Remember, when there's a mixed number, when there's a number in front of the fraction, replace the 0 before the decimal point with the number in front of the fraction, kind of like we saw in question number 2.